After Dr. Chee from Hong I'd just like to ask whether you have plans for more plans on your election campaign, meaning the slogan, and whether you all will be campaigning the same areas that you all did previously.
As you see, our campaign slogan is right behind us. It's SDP now, and the way forward. Why we settle on the way forward? It's very much based on our vision and our alternative policies, which we've drawn up to point the way forward. Hence, this slogan. In terms of the constituencies that we are looking at, it's no different from the ones that we contested in 2015. So subject, of course, to the redrawing of the boundaries, which we won't know until closer to the election. So, but as it stands right now, it will be those same few constituencies that we contested in 2015.
Yes, those are the ones we've been walking around anyway. Any other questions from the media? Yes, Hasina.
Thanks, Dr. Tan. Yeah. Hi, Dr. Chee. I'm Hasina, founder of a startup media company, Autonomous, Hasina Post. You've devoted an entire campaign on trust. How would you respond to people from the other side that would consider that laughable because they branded you as untrustworthy? In fact, I've just spoken to a member of the audience and asked him whether he bought your message, and he said to a certain extent. Why do you think people still have a trust barrier, and do you think you're electable in the upcoming election? Thank you.
As I said in my presentation, trust is not mere words, right? They're deeds. And you can say a lot. I've demonstrated to you, shown you the campaign speech that the PM made, Mr. Lee Hsien-loong made during the GE in 2015. Now, you can argue all you want, but the proof is in the eating, right? And I've just shown you incontrovertible facts that when he says that, oh, we're taking care of the cost of living, and then after the elections, you go ahead and increase prices and rates and charges for a slew of items. Now, mind you, this is despite Mr. Tharman Shanmugaratnam saying that, oh, we don't need any more revenue measures because we've got enough to tide us in 2020. This is what I'm talking about, trust. Right? You say one thing and then do another. And there's another aspect to trust. I've said this, and that is trust comes with you being consistent, being reliable, being there all the time. If you take what I've said, what I've written, when I first got into politics and joined SDP, that was more than 25 years ago. You look at some of the things we said in our manifesto then, and in my own publications, That Can Change, for example. You've seen what we've said then, and what we're saying now. It hasn't changed that much. We're still continuing to fight the same things, because why? The PAP refuses to change. And in the process, in the interim, what they've done was they've hit us, thrown the kitchen sink at us. But we're stuck. We're stuck to our message. We've never wavered in our belief that rights come before riches, people before profit, wealth before wisdom before wealth. So these are the things that I refer to when I talk about trust, right? Not just word, but deed. And it's demonstrably true. that SVP has been here all this time, and in this time, we're stuck to our beliefs and our values.
Let me add to that. I think a lot of the reason why people from the mainstream media and people who have been fed a diet of mainstream media of the past have this kind of perception, which is different from, in a way, the reality. It's partly because of the way Dr. Chee has been presented in the 1990s and the 2000s. And to me, nothing exemplifies this more than the transition that occurred in 2015. In July of 2015, I was walking around Raffles Place, and Dr. Chee was selling his books, and people would cross the road on the other side. In September of 2015, there was a line of people waiting 1 hour around Boat Quay, waiting for him to sign his book. What changed? And I think what changed was the fact that people got a chance to see for themselves, without the filters of the media and the way it's presented in TV and the news, and of course social media, although social media is a two-edged sword, as we've seen, you get crazy people saying all kinds of crazy things. But when people see for themselves, what the SDP is really all about, then all of a sudden, they get a different perspective. In fact, my wife and I had lunch with Dr. Chee early on when I first joined the SDP, and the thing she said to me after the lunch really stuck in my head. She said, he's a normal person. I said, of course he's a normal person. She said, he's not the monster that he's made out to be. So I think that's what you can say to the people who think it's laughable. They need to just sit down, have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, they're coming out of the set.
Any other questions from the, yes, in the front?
Hi, Dr. Chee, Dr. Bai, this is Lydia from Street Times. Could you give us a sense of, how you're ramping up in terms of volunteer targets, logistics, right?
Yeah, it's never enough. You know what the situation is, and we're up against is just constant, deep-seated fear in the psyche of Singaporeans. I know many of them have expressed that they want to come and help, but at the same time, they are fearful that it's the state watching them. Will they get, the words of the compile, mark? And this is what we're up against. But we're constantly finding with the advent, since the advent of the social media, a significant increase in the number of Singaporeans willing to step up and volunteer with us. So, apart from polling agents, which I must say that we've happily been able to fill in terms of all the polling agents and then counting agents as well. But that during the campaign period, the fight, the contest is won or lost way before those time periods. And so for us, it's making sure that we start early. We get people like you here coming to this event early enough. We don't know when the elections is. We can't figure that towards the end of this year. But people say, well, you've got 7 or 8 months. Call us Kiasu. I don't. But it's important for us because we don't know when elections are going to be held. By the time it's called, it's too late. So we're starting early, and we're hoping that everyone here will volunteer with us, because don't forget, when you get out into the street, when you get out among the blocks, you look at the number of households that you've got to knock and you've got to visit and you've got to persuade the residents to vote for us. It is a humongous fight. So I want to encourage everybody to come on board. In terms of numbers, if I had to put a ballpark figure to walk with us, 300, 400, 500. Those are the numbers that we're looking at. And then we'll divide all our volunteers up into teams in the precincts, and we will appoint captains so that we can make sure we thoroughly cover all the blocks, and then visit it a couple of times before the elections are called. That's what we're doing.
Again, just to add, yesterday was just a crazy day when we heard that the venue had been changed, and we were having some discussions about whether to shift it, whether to postpone the event. And what was really amazing was the logistics team. They actually sent a bus to Eunos, and they ferried, fortunately I think there was only 3 people who had gone to the original venue. They brought them over here. So that's the kind of thing that the SDP's ground operations team is capable of doing, and that's pretty remarkable. So again, last year, I admit we were overwhelmed when we had a call for polling agents, and we were not the most organized. But hopefully that's the last election. But hopefully this time around, with a good and early start, we'll be able to get things a bit better sorted out. Any other questions?
Just one more question. Because there have been some developments in opposition politics in recent months. We've had Dr. Tan Cheng Bock setting up his own party, and I think Ben, very familiar face from DPP, is also applied to join the SDP. So what does this mean in your view for opposition politics, and is the proposal of the alliance among opposition parties still on the table?
I am very happy to say that my perception has been that in recent months, there's been just a growing concern among the opposition parties that we cannot keep doing what we've done in election parties. There is at least this consciousness that we don't know what the end result is, but we've got to move towards a more coordinated front. To whatever degree. Everyone knows that it's going to take a lot of effort. But at the very least, I sense that there is this sense of urgency amongst the various opposition parties. And what happened last year, when everybody met in our office, including Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, was very encouraging. And we continue to maintain that we've invited the concurrence of all those present to ask Dr. Tan Cheng Bock to spearhead the effort. As far as we're concerned, we want to kind of grease the wheels, right? Facilitate the process, and then, let's see where that leads us. But I agree. I think our party feels very strongly, and that's been the call of Singaporean public for us to make sure at least work towards a more coordinated front. We cannot promise, we cannot guarantee that we will get there in the months to come. But the important thing is that we need to get the initiative going, get the effort. If you look at any other jurisdiction, there have been so many all across the world, most recently in Malaysia. Whatever the opposition did, it didn't just happen just before, 6 months before the elections. It took decades, right, to work things through. So I remain very hopeful. I mean, high as the mountain is, I really think that there is, things are looking up, but we've got to work at it. We've got to continue to push and to come up with initiatives. So that's something which we are working through.
Faris?
Hi, Maurice from today. I have a few questions. The first is we talk about opposition unity. How important is it for the Workers' Party to be part of this coordinated effort or coalition? And second question is, how different is your campaign strategy or your campaign strategy this time around versus 2015? And the last question is, what is the significance of the change in your slogan from the way forward now for this year, as well as your voice in Parliament back in 2015?
Let me take this sequentially. As far as the Workers' Party is concerned, we continue to encourage all opposition parties to come together and we do what we can, as I said, to facilitate it. Whatever comes of that, it's beyond our control. But rest assured, we want to be that as I said, the facilitating kind of try to provide the nuts and bolts, if you will. Okay, and the important thing, as I said, to call Dr. Tan Cheng Bok to persuade any and all opposition parties to come on board, to come to the table, and let's talk. Okay. I forget what your second question was, but let me, in terms of our slogan and how that differs from what we campaigned on in the last elections, it's important if you look at everything that was said and done. Everything really points to what we want to achieve in the future, both near term and longer term. We've identified all these problems that Singaporeans are facing, right? One just simple thing would be your birth rate. The TFR is so low that we're unable to replace ourselves. If I'm not mistaken, we're the lowest, right? At about 1.12, births per woman. And then we find all our young Singaporeans leaving this country. The one important thing that you've got to be, if you're a policy maker, you want to say, what's going on, right? The feedback over and over is telling you it's the cost of living. Cost of living is really is preventing a lot. You ask the young couples there, right? They will tell you this cost of living that's making them think twice. And then the stress of society, and of late, there have been some surveys showing that it's lack of political space in Singapore that's driving Singaporeans overseas. You would be thinking, as I said, if you're a policymaker, you say, okay, it is the cost of living, let's see how we can attenuate that problem, right? And then let's open up political space so we can retain our true blue Singaporeans. Do you know what the PAP does? Increases the cost of living, clamps down on political space, not online. And you expect to get a different result. And when you see Singaporeans leaving and our birth rate slowing down, you think of just bringing in foreigners. Now, I cite this example is because looking forward, is this a sustainable policy? And that is why we've sat and we've thought through, we've had long discussions. How are we going to bring up, to make sure that we begin to address this situation? Paul has brought up this situation, the issue of Dr. Donald Lowe, talking about wealth taxes, right? And he's absolutely right. If you look at our proposal, when we published in 2014 or 2013, we advocate there must be wealth tax. We must bring back the state duty for the very, very wealthy. I think we propose those with property of about $20 million. Let's reinstate estate duty. And we've said also that we must increase personal income taxes on the richest 1%, the top earners. Bring it closer to about 13%. Right now, I think our top bracket is about 22%. Again, looking forward, we've got to make our system sustainable. And hence, this whole slogan about SDP now, but it's got to be forward-looking, and that's how our slogan comes from. Would you remind me of your
other question is, how different is your election strategy this time around? In the sense that, what have you learned from Chee 2015 and the Bukit election that you would do it differently this time?
I don't know, in terms of how we can do it differently versus us doing more intensively, extensively. Because, a lot of it depends on what the PAP does, right? One good example was that you walk around in this constituency, you bang away at it, you get to know all the residents, and then they withdraw it. And this has been a perennial problem in our politics here. And then, you know, when they see you getting good in one aspect of campaigning, they introduce a law saying that you cannot do that. It's been going on for a long time. When we first came out with, you know, those was before our Facebook and so on and so forth. We did this video. It was still on VHS for those who really don't know what it is. We cut that video, and all of a sudden they amended the Broadcasting Act, Films Act, banning that video. And then we came up with podcasting, and they said podcasting is illegal. And then we come up with humorous clips just to you know get people aware. Then they say that's animation, and you remember that video that we had of the PAP washing powder, right? Put in a t-shirt and all of a sudden transparency, accountability, oh God, right? Democracy, no more. Then they say, you know, animation video, not allowed. So it's that kind of thing. A lot of times it's not up to what we want to do, but how they see us getting ahead and making sure they put roadblocks in front of us. But what we can do, we will do, and in this sense, you know, on our ground work, we're going to intensify and make it more extensive.
Sorry, just one more question. Chee might push the next year, possibly because of the recent spate of lapses. So with you kicking off your campaign early on, is there a concern that you or the other opposition parties might lose steam by then?
If that was the case, we would have lost steam by now, because we started 3 years ago, after the last election. I'm not exaggerating. You can check out our website, right? After the GE, we never really stopped working. And this is one thing I can tell you. You know, for every one event that you see this here, it takes months of planning. This particular event, we started planning for it last year already. So you think about it, a major task like an election. You try to start now, gone case. Right? You had to start it years ago, and that's what we did. We were planning, strategizing, sitting down and saying what really is the message that we want to put out, what resonates with Singapore, what are the issues that they're concerned about. And it takes time for us to listen, to document, and then bring it together and put it into a comprehensive form. And thereafter, then we break it up into bite-sized, digestible pieces so we can put it out to Singaporeans, and then they can begin to absorb. And that is going to happen in the months ahead. Right? It's not us just coming up and they come up with this nice slogan, nice pictures, and everybody gets it. No. The work starts now, and it will take months before we can really reach out to the ground, the average voter, and then they get on this.
Any other?
I think you did a superb job in trying to convince the Republic residents, but ultimately you achieved less than 40%. Okay, so it's not the organization, the way you went about it. I thought it was much better than the Bukit Batok resident I could see. Okay, the following up from today's reporters' questions. What was it that? What kind of lesson did you learn from the Bukit Batok by-election and your previous elections that you're going to adopt a very different way of going forward? Because anything short of 50% vote, and then it's a waste of effort. It costs a lot of money to do that. Right? So what I'm trying to say is that basically the SDP so far has not come up with a policy of generating revenue. You want to spend on healthcare, you want to spend on, reduce GST, reduce cost of living, everything else. Okay, it's easy. But where do you find that revenue? What is your idea of generating revenues and jobs? These are the concern of the people.
Thanks. We'll take that. We'll take maybe one more question from the public, and then we'll take the two together. Yes, over there.
Firstly, I must congratulate Dr. Chee for standing up against all odds. I would like to take up two issues here. One issue was on the question of trust. I think it's a very distasteful question. You see, the question of the trust is not in Dr. Chee's hands. If you want to talk about trust, how much power does Dr. Chee has in Straits Times or any other thing? Now, we take M. Ravi. He was sent to the Mental Health Institute. We take Dr. J.B. Jeratnam. He went to the appeals court in London, won the case, and when he came to Singapore, LKY backdated it to make it out of date. So Dr. Chee has paid his price, and I don't think there's not anything distrustful about him. It's all not in his hands, it's in the hands of the press. Talking about why he lost Bukit Batok constituency, I'll tell it to you now. I've got people staying in Bukit Batok who pay for their constituency charge in Bukit Batok. When come to voting, they are not in Bukit Batok constituency. So it's not in his hands. It's all in the hands of the outlaws. Okay, Dr. Chee, I wish to congratulate you and keep up the good work.
One more question from the floor, and then, like I said, we'll take them together. Okay, we've got 5 minutes.
Hi, I think in terms of like younger voters like myself, a growing issue is climate change, which is actually a very, it's basically one of the biggest and most urgent global threats now. And the government has some measures to tackle climate change, but some say that they are insufficient. So will the SCP have any position on climate change for the coming election?
Okay, very good question. One last question, we're going to take them all together. Yes, Osman.
I want to ask, what do you think is the problem that is preventing all the other opposition parties to actually cooperate and go into the next election under one banner? And what do you think will be a viable solution to overcome this problem?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand this mic over to Dr.
I think that's an excellent question in terms of what the SDP's policy is in as far as generating revenue, income. If you look at what's happening right now, our economy under the PAP system is living on borrowed time. Don't take it from me. There are economists in the IPS who said the same thing. Right? It's a very extractive economy. In other words, we take from the menu, right? And then really amass it under the few. Because if you look at what's been going on, in terms of productivity, we're still nowhere. You look at innovation, we're still struggling. Okay? How long is this going to go on when we continue to have to rely on cheap foreign labor to augment our economy? In this day and age, where you compete no longer on low wages, go ahead and try to compete with Vietnam, right? Compete with the Philippines. And then you have another wave coming in from Africa. If you're going to do that all the time, it's a race to the bottom. What we need to do, we made it very clear, is you've got to graduate. Our economy has got to graduate on to the next level. And that is dependent on the innovation and creativity of our people. People are, the government says we're small. I beg your pardon. You've got your Luxembourgs, you've got your New Zealands, you've got your Switzerlands, you've got your Scandinavian countries. Very similar in population to Singapore. But yet, they're very innovative. They're things that the world wants to buy. You look at South Korea, right? Being able to compete at the top level. Where are we? That's the danger. Okay? And that is where we need to work towards. And the one thing that's going to get up there is to have more freedom, more democracy. People that question that. Now I challenge you. Think about where the Steve Jobs, the Mark Zuckerberg, your K-pops. You think you find K-pops in North Korea? You think you find your J.K. Rowling's from in where? In one of those autocratic countries? No. It's where you have freedom that stimulates, that allows the people to have freedom of expression, and then you're going to get the guts and the drive and the wherewithal to really begin to become an innovative and creative society. That's where we need to proceed. Now, when you do that, then your economy begins to start growing, and then when you do that, then you're really able to bring in the revenue and generate income for the people as well as for the state. Okay. The question on climate change. If you read, if you have written about this in Neverland Benjamin's, not a shameless plug for you. But it is a huge concern, and I'll talk about it, and we are very oil dependent still, fossil fuels, right? Very oil dependent still. The question is, how do we work our way out? I agree, we are a small country, and how much we can contribute to the process, that's going to be minimal, but nevertheless, I think we have to work towards it. And I assure you, we are looking at it very much. I know that our youth, some of our members have been overseas attending many of these conferences on climate change, and we're studying the whole matter and seeing what we can do to come up with a comprehensive policy that's viable for Singapore. Yes, on the opposition, in terms of what it takes to bring the opposition under one banner, I think the first step is really to get everybody even just to sit on the same table, right? And just to ask the question, what are we trying to achieve? If it's me getting into Parliament, no matter what, then I think we'll fail. And that is why for us in SDP, we've always made sure we base our campaigns, what we strive for, everything on values. Because if a party doesn't have values, if you believe in nothing, you fall for anything. And so, I want to continue to encourage all our opposition friends, really think of what we're fighting for, and let's try to work towards that end where we have at least that common value, that goal that we want to achieve. And look, put our differences aside. Since I've joined the opposition, on so many occasions, we're trying to work towards where there's more cooperation. I remember when JB was around, I used to work within the Open Singapore Center. And at one point, we called the opposition parties, to form a chapter in Singapore, a forum for democratic leaders in the Asia Pacific. We signed a memorandum of agreement with PTMS before, and encouraged all opposition parties to come together to sign the pact as well. But we'll continue to do all these things. And the most recent was that luncheon that we had. We're not giving up. Okay, we're not giving up. But for Osman, you bring to the table what we all want to see going. Let's not despair. Let's not see that the cup is half full. Let's see half empty. Let's see that it's half full, and let's continue to work to fill it up. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think we've come to the end of our time. I'll then turn back to the MC. Thank you all very much for your questions.